The landscape of regulatory. It has changed so much in the 30 years I've been doing this business. I mean, I remember Joint Commission was a plant technology safety. PSO, that's right, safety management. And you would put it, you say, I'd read the PTSM, I'd make a policy that says it, and I'd do it, and they come in and you get accreditation with commendation. You know those days?
Right.
Those days are our age. No, sorry. My hair tells my age, my friend. So anyhow, I think those things really have impacted healthcare.
There's a major crisis facing healthcare facilities management. We have aging employees, aging buildings, and aging infrastructure. We've created the Healthcare Facilities Network, a content network designed specifically to help solve for these three pressing issues in healthcare facilities management. We bring on thought leaders and experts from across healthcare facilities management, all the way from the C-suite to the technician level, because at the end of the day, we're all invested in solving the aging issue. Thanks for tuning in. Look at our videos. You will find that as a theme across our content. This is the Healthcare Facilities Network. I'm your host, Peter Martin. Hello, and welcome to the Healthcare Facilities Network. I'm your host, Peter Martin, Vice President of Business Development for CRAF. So, as you might notice, we are once again on site, this time with Florida Healthcare Engineers Association. We're in Orlando, Florida. It is the annual meeting for the Florida Healthcare Engineers, and I have a group of distinguished guests who I thank for joining me at this early hour of the morning. I'll ask each of them to introduce themselves, who they are, where they work, and what your role is. So Jennifer, why don't we start with you?
My name is Jennifer Bello. I am the Market Director for HCA for the Dade and Broward team. Currently, I am the Membership Committee Chairperson for FHEA.
Excellent. Thank you, Jennifer.
Terrence Wright, Vice President, Facilities and Support Services at Moffitt Cancer Center. And my role is pretty much everything associated with facilities and support services.
Terrence, thank you. Terrence is a veteran of Healthcare Facilities Network, right? Terrence
Yes.
appeared on the podcast version when it was just voices. Now we've gone to in person. So Terrence, welcome back.
Thank you.
Jack's good to see you. Bobby Baird, UF Health, I manage facilities for the network, and State Treasurer for FHEA, and it won't be long. I'll have a good role for Terrence. It's just quick. No.
He started recruiting me the day we met.
Over us. It'll be difficult. You're going to come around one day.
Yes, sir.
He's very persistent.
He is.
Which I guess persistent. Let's actually start there. That's very interesting. Because I want to talk with Florida, JUC Florida, Bobby and Jennifer have been here for 20 plus years working in the healthcare environment. But, persistency, actually, that's a really good word. I imagine persistency is a trait that you need to do well in this field, maybe even more so than in other areas. Can we talk about that, just the word persistence and how that benefits you as a facilities person? You guys have a lot of responsibility, so I'm sure there's a lot of persistency. Anybody want to take a stab at that one?
I'll start. I tell my directors all the time, I think being persistent and following up is one of the biggest parts of facilities director. It's nice to send that quote approved or go and call the vendor, but who's following up on that? So you have to constantly be organized enough to set yourself reminders, to be persistent, to close that loop. But the ones that don't, that is their major downfall.
Yeah, the ones that I don't.
Yeah.
And I do. I agree with that 100%. I think being persistent and committed to doing what we do and the follow through is the real key. And a lot of times people put things in motion. It'll get them started, but they won't follow continuity for it. And our being persistent in what we do. Change doesn't happen in a short period of time, so it takes a lot of reinforcement over and over and over again And the more we're persistent at what we do and the follow through, we get this cadence. And the cadence leads to really their calves down. So I think persistence is a good word.
Well, I thought it was a good word, but I'm not sure now. I think you need to be more persistent. I would say that for persistence, I have found that you have to look at each situation differently. So sometimes persistence, it will work to your benefit, and you'll take that particular path of being that thorn in someone's side, and sometimes it can work against you. So I've learned that, like in Terrence's case, I will be persistent because it's not working against me. But occasionally, I've found that persistence has backfired on me, where I'm pushing my CFO for something, and it's like, don't ask me again. And now you're in a bad place. So sometimes you have to redirect and take it to someone that maybe has more skin in the game than I might have. You know, maybe I just made this up. I'm trying to get a med-vac pump replaced because it's at end of life, and I know that if it fails, it's going to cause some issues in the organization. CFO may not have any skin in that game, well, they would, but he may not. This is a made-up scenario. But I guarantee you the respiratory and the nursing has skin in the game. So I might, elicit some help from my friends at work to help be persistent. So sometimes you got to be careful of how you apply it. So I think it's important to recognize that when you're actually the line field of health.
So persistence and strategy at times. Yep. Let's talk about Florida. We are here, the Florida Healthcare Engineers Association. Jennifer, she said, is the membership coordinator. Bobby's the treasurer. Terrence has a soon-to-be announced position, so you don't have Vince for this one if you don't want. But Florida, when I was doing recruiting for Gosselin Martin Associates, everybody wanted to move south. Especially those people. I could count on one hand the number of people who said to me, I want to go north. There weren't many of them. One of them was actually in Florida. But tell me, Jennifer, we'll start with you. What did you see relative to changes in Florida healthcare? I think you've been facilities manager for 7 years, but you've been in healthcare for more than 20. How has this market changed over the last 20 years? I imagine it has to be dramatic.
So in different ways, it's been dramatic. So for the trades, for example, there used to be a lot of trades available, a lot of hospital experience. Before now,
So it is actually, it's a great facility. So it's before 7. They're mowing the lawn. You never know what's going to happen in your day if you're at home.
So now I feel like the trades have been, the ones that are in the hospital have been staying in the hospital. So there's not that many trades that we're finding now, right, that have hospital experience, because of course we always look for hospital experience. So we're trying to bring in, the apprentices and things like that. As for facilities directors, I'm seeing a lot of out-of-state applicants, right? So people do want to come to Florida. They do say, oh, wonderful weather, let's go. I get a lot of out-of-state applicants, which is wonderful. But when I get to that certain point that we're ready to make the offer, I'm like, have you checked the cost of living down here? Especially depends on where the hospital is. That is an important question I learned to ask straight from the beginning now, because I see that when they're about to move, they're like, oh, wait a minute, you can't afford it down there. So depending on the hospital and the area around, I'm finding that to be a big problem.
It's funny you say that, because in recruiting, you build relationships with people. You start to know what people, when they can move, when they can't move. And there are some folks in facilities who, Bobby, you're probably one of them, who are attuned to so many different areas, who they know what the cost of living is. They know, and there are some people who bow out right at the very beginning. I was worried about that at the end and to bring that up, because you don't want to lose. You invest a lot of time and money in interviewing, only to have them say, "Oh, I didn't. Yeah, never mind. Thanks for your time."
I learned that quick to ask those questions. I'm like, please, go do your homework. Then if you're interested, we'll continue.
That's exactly, yeah. So it's good to have choices, but you got to make sure the choices are
Yeah.
realistic. Fadi, what about you?
I look at it a little more globally. I see three things that really have changed the landscape for healthcare, and they impact facilities in some way, shape, or form. The first one was the elimination of CON. So that has changed the way hospitals compete with each other, how they bring revenue in, and I don't know if it helped or hurt the patients. I don't know. So that's one that I think has made a big difference in the healthcare market. The second is we're seeing some of the tariff issues are starting to impact us, and it is a little reminiscent of the COVID era. So we had a little playbook for COVID that when you're having a hard time getting something, how do you manage your organization? So I'm starting to see a little bit of that. We may get some relief here pretty soon. And I guess the third is just the landscape of regulatory. It has changed so much in the 30 years I've been doing this business. I mean, I remember Joint Commission was a plant technology safety. Yes, that's right, safety management. And you would put it, you say, I'd read the PTSM, I'd make a policy that says it, and I'd do it, and they come in and you get accreditation with commendation. You know those days?
Right.
Those days are our age. No, sorry. My hair tells my age, my friend. So anyhow, I think those things really have impacted healthcare and facilities departments in our area as well. So that's my take on it.
And for me, I've been in this market now for 40 years. And I have seen the continued growth and very much, echo the whole thing of people that are moving into the market. And then also trying to source skilled tradespeople that understand healthcare and or have the foundation to want to learn and to build a career in healthcare. So that's been a challenge here in Florida for me. And I've seen it get progressively more challenging at 40 years. So it's nice to have the talent pool that's out there, but it's not necessarily the talent pool that's ready to go day one. So we have to invest in trying to build that talent up, introduce them to healthcare, and help them understand that these are critical jobs that we do every single day.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, Terrence. I just reported a show last week with a gentleman who's been in healthcare for, it's like 5 years now, 6 years now, but he was a teacher and he was an HVAC tech, and he just kind of found this career and he loves it. And that's part of what we try to do here is just publicize that it exists, because we can't fix an issue if people don't even know you're there. I can't finish it. And it's that weird thing, because everybody goes into a hospital. We're in hospitals throughout our entire life, yet nobody knows, like, you three guys, your roles exist. You just go in, you go out. You don't figure the career unless you're a doctor or nurse, probably flipping your differences.
Back to how the landscape has changed. Things have changed in this business, and I think you guys will probably agree with me. I don't want to mention manufacturers, but I bought a chiller 2 years ago, and it was supposed to be installed last June. And it was just installed a month ago.
Yes.
I've got a piece of switchgear that would normally be 3 or 4 months to be made, 56 weeks.
Right.
Right. So if you don't plan for that, if you are going to wait till things are really bad to replace something, you're going to be in a bad way. You're going to buy something that's not what you wanted to buy because it was just available. It was too big, too small, too whatever, doesn't fit, whatever. And that is really a landscape changer for us. I use landscape too many times already.
Nobody's counting.
But it's really made a difference in how we have to prepare our facilities for these renovations or for just timed out equipment. So it has made things more difficult.
If you like this video, please like and subscribe to the network. And more importantly, share it with your colleagues in the healthcare industry. Together, we can solve the aging crisis that's impacting all of us. So one of the themes that we're trying to get to this year is aging employees, aging buildings, aging infrastructure. Because every organization has one or three of them. You were kind of along the lines. How have you had to change your management style, managing people above you who may not be as attuned to, okay, we're waiting 56 weeks for to get into production. How do you verbalize that and manage that going up in your organization when it's not in front of them, what it is for you?
For me, I think it's just constant communication. So I continue to bring market analysis back to the institution, coming to groups like this and hearing some of the things that my colleagues are going through. We're all going through some of the same things. It's supply chain issues, issues with the talent pool of trying to recruit and retain and train and everything else. So bringing that information back and communicating it to the organizations, people clearly understand what the landscape is out there. It's the things that we're doing.
Great word.
But but one of the things that's critical is to show me. I am a big fan of, let's go for a walk. Let me show you the chiller. Let me have a discussion with you about the boiler. Let me tell you the implications of, if this goes down, this is what happens on the other side. That's why I need to replace this. This is why, and with supply chain, I need to order this now to have it in next year. So I think it's that communication, it's the visual, and it's really making sure that people are informed and know the things that you're dealing with. I believe in our positions, everything is free. It's strategy and it's risk management. So we have to have a strategy around the things that we do, and we have to understand and communicate to people that there are certain risks that come with every decision or non-decision. So we have to communicate that.
I agree. Communication's the biggest point. And having a backup plan, right? Having a backup plan for things that might not be funded quickly, things that might not be available quickly, or as for employees, what's going to happen when this person ages out? What's going to happen? And a lot of times we don't have a backup plan, and that is the scary part, right? So I think out of all three, I'm almost worried about the aging employees, because I think that is one that you just backup plan. Everything else, I think, can mostly be solved by rental or something like that. Quick emergency, you have a backup plan, but those things
Yeah.
years. This is what I'm worried.
That's actually a good way to look at it. I mean, I kind of look at the same way, Jennifer, is that if you don't have people, like, you can have all of this stuff, right? You can have the lawnmower that just keeps going by, but without somebody to operate it. And yeah, granted, people say AI, and yeah, there are uses of it, but they're not people. And without that, it is scary.
Without question, all three are an issue in our industry. I'm fortunate that our organization supports infrastructure. I think the issue that we run into most frequently is understanding. As I mentioned, understanding by the administration. So I've often thought that if I would just take the motor out of their air hammer, put in the patient air hammer, they'd understand better. But I think that's probably everything solved. That's probably not what you should do. So facility manager thought, yeah. But I do believe that, Terrence, you're dead on. And Jennifer, that communication and the downstream effects do make a difference. That takes the reality of the situation to their vision. So,
That was one of those topics that I wanted to touch on. We talk about the relationship between the C-suite and folks at your level, which are right there at the top of the facilities chain. What do you think is the most critical? Maybe it's multiple, but is there one relationship that you try to create with the C-suite, that one position within the C-suite that you think is the most critical to have a healthy relationship with for success? Does one stand up?
Yeah, definitely COO.
COO.
Yeah, definitely. You and your COO must be in tune, high communication, usually either with the VPO, sometimes with the VPO assisting, but you guys should be talking daily. You should be knowing what is their plan, I'll give you an example. The other day, we were gonna replace an air handler. I had it part of my construction plan, and we didn't know that they were gonna remodel the lab, and they were gonna upgrade the air handler in that lab. So we're like not in tune. The facility was not in tune with what was happening this season. So that constant communication, especially with your CEO, needs to be there.
For me, it's a CNO.
Sienna.
I love strategic partnerships.
Yeah.
The CNO and his or her team brings a lot of intelligence from the organization. There are patient advocates. I like to partner with them. I like to round with them. I like to see what they're seeing. And I utilize them and help leverage them for assistance with projects, the things that I'm doing and those kinds of things. It goes back to the communication of painting picture. This is what this infrastructure element means. And this is what it means to you or the patients to take care of every single day. And what I do is I create an outline, a burnout. So I'm going in to sit with the CFO or to sit with the COO, and we have those discussions. I have an advocate that's in the room with me that's saying, that's an important thing. And they're able to verbalize why it's important. And sometimes I'm able to just kind of let them help make my case and just reinforce with some of the other things that are important. But the CNO is very important for me, critical. And the second one would be the CFO. CFO is the person that I take on those tours and say, let's go take a look. So,
Let's see what you are.
I think I want to say it just like I tell my kids, I hate you all equally. And the truth is, I don't hate them. So, Terrence, you really were on point with that. It's not one. I literally, it depends on what the situation is. Typically, the CPO doesn't have a horse in the race. They've already done the strategy, so the CPO is kind of off the table. I mean, if they want something, they're going to get it, right? You have to look at the situation. If it's renovating a patient floor, it's going to be the CNO and the CFO. There's going to be those cross pollinations where you have to work with different individuals. I don't think there's anyone specific. I will say this though, that I found a lot of traction with quality, chief quality officer, because they work across all those clinical areas. So if there's something going on with whether it's regulatory or whether it's clinical, or they're like, hey, we got to make sure we keep that. So again, I wish there was one, but I hate them all equal.
Equal opportunity. So I want to, I've never thought about this word before, but in listening to your answers, I've never thought about this word for the role of facilities. But in some ways, you guys are like chameleons. And often we think like a negative can be attributed to chameleons. It's always changing. But you guys have to have that quality in your role.
Right.
Without it, you probably can't succeed.
I think that's one of the most exciting parts of the job. It's just, it is a dynamic environment. And any given day, I mean, we live, at this level mostly in strategy, but you also live in the tech.
Yeah.
And the things that happen every single day, the chiller that goes down unexpectedly. Okay, we're going to get a rental in. We're going to do this. So, you're absolutely right. I think you have to change based on the situation. You change based on the audience. You change based on some of the plans that you had in place, that now you have to shift to that plan B and everything else. So it's an exciting and dynamic environment, and it brings that variety that I think for me personally, it kind of fuels my career and passion for doing this job.
Scott, change, I don't like the word change. What would you call that? I would think that it is adaptability environment, right? So you have to know yourself. And I know that for me, I'm a cart face up, just call it like it is person. And everyone doesn't like that. So I've learned to adapt. If I'm talking to I'm going to use titles because I don't want to say names in that, and I'll change the name. So if I'm talking to the CNO, I might have to be more touchy-feely, talk about, if I'm talking to the CFO, it might be just, here's the numbers, here's the net present value or ROI or whatever, how we're looking at it for whatever project we're doing. So it's understanding how you work and then understanding how people receive that information and not just saying, this is how I am and you just get over it, because then I'm the one that has to get over it, right? Because the answer's no, the type. So
Or see ya.
right, see you wouldn't want to be it, right? So that's really how I've evolved. I remember early in my career, I was very, learning, and I was a little more palatable. I could kind of be molded.
Yeah.
And as I've learned over these decades, I'm like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. And then I learned, well, yeah, you don't know what you're talking about because they don't care what you know. So it's really learning how to adapt and be, because at the end of the day, what are we trying to do? We're trying to get the air handler replaced, the Ford done. It's really not about me.
Yeah.
And so learning, that was a hard lesson for someone that's a cards face up kind of person. So you had to really adapt. So I hope that helps.
No, it does. It's funny you say that because I am right now developing an education class for a client of ours, and he kind of asked for something similar to that. He's like, he's got a good problem that he's got young staff, but he's like, they don't know, and it's a different generation, and we're not talking about generations here, but they're a younger generation, used to phone and communicating that way. Is like they don't always know how to communicate with people above. They don't feel the room like I need them to feel the room, and some of that comes with experience, right? We learn that, but I think some of it, we look at generational issues. That's definitely one, because we all grew up. It was different, right? It was streetlights were a communicator for us. Right? So yeah,
Jennifer's a little younger than us. She didn't remember the rotary dial phone crop. So that's all right.
But Peter, I think to your point, one of the things that I spend a lot of time in is that zone of kind of coaching and talent development, and having that discussion about, let's talk about that situation. How did you have approached it a different way? Is there something else that you could have done to make that connection and make your point without, that kind of brute force, well, here it is, these are the numbers, and you have to agree with me.
Yeah.
As opposed to make the case.
Yeah.
Everything is a storyboard. Let's tell the story, and let's help people understand. And we will lead them to where we need them to go, hopefully, and then we can make appropriate decisions. But there's a lot of that, trying to teach that tactic of understand the room, understand the audience, and how you communicate with people.
So let's actually finish with that, because these folks kindly giving me time this morning, but there's breakfast and you guys have work to do with the board. But I want to see, we've talked about aging employees. You've kind of talked a little bit about succession plan. Jeff, we'll start with you. How do you find that time? I mean, employee development, finding employees, keeping employees. If employees have a PEP, they're more likely to stay. But how do you implement succession planning? How do you try to get the most out of your interpreter for keeping them engaged and growing up?
So HCA is trying to build this kind of model that we bring in apprentices and just mold them up little by little. I go to different facilities, so I make sure I round with the facilities, make sure that they're providing, because the facilities directors get caught up, right? And sometimes they don't pay attention to what's going on there. So I try to bring that to light. Hey, let's get this person educational courses. There's a lot of educational courses that HCA offers, and then I really want to make sure that everybody's in FHEA. I promote that a lot to get their education that way also. My problem is getting those manager or supervisor positions approved so that there is that ladder, right? So I think that is my biggest problem. But I'm a big fan of education, and I think that not everybody's up for it, right? Not everybody's some people are just like, I'm happy right where I'm at, leave me alone. But every once in a while you find that one person that wants to go for it, and then I really get in tune with that person and just hound on them to make sure I focus on their education, and then if the opportunity is not available in that hospital, want to make sure that they're promoted to another hospital. Oops, so they're really big on that.
Yeah, you bring up, there's two things I just want to elaborate on. We don't have a lot of time, so just fly through it. But number one, I think with so many organizations eliminating managers and supervisors, they've completely wiped out that internal farm system that you've talked. And it's really biting us in the butt now. There's no way to bring that back quickly because they're gone. That was number one. And the number two, you talked about being number two. I always talk about streetlights. In 1965, I wasn't alive to read this, but Eisenhower wrote a piece for Reader's Digest. He was talking about leadership. And one of his light bulbs that turned on for him in his career was he was trying to promote somebody, and the guy said, no, I'm happy doing what I'm doing. And I termed it, being number two is okay.
Right.
And that's how he learned it, because not everybody wants to have the problems you have. They're very good at it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're doing some of the same things. We are not as mature as your process right now. But one of the things that we've also added was, you might recall from your recruiting days, the old 9-box exercise. Yeah. So what we're doing is a talent development process. So we're doing a 360-degree analysis of our leads, our supervisors, and our managers. So I'm working with my directors to take a look at that, the layered leadership. So we're trying to identify those opportunities for improvement. And we're also kind of interviewing those team members about what are your plans. Because, like I said, number two, some people are just completely con. They don't want to deal with those other issues. But those that self-select and say, I'd like to progress in the organization, we try to put together a process around them where they're working with some of their colleagues and they're learning. This is what the job is in the whole thing. And unfortunately, because that management level has been eliminated, that's like an added burden. But we've got a lot of people that are investing in themselves. The certifications are very important. The CHFM and the CHC, and even the technician certifications are very important. So we're trying to push as many people through those as we can. It helps us with the talents development of people that were not healthcare previously but are now. So they're learning our business, and several of them are standing up and saying, I want a career. So those are very positive things, but we've got a lot of work to do. I haven't got the apprenticeships approved and things like that, so we're still working.
Yeah, it takes a lot of time.
It does.
Look at our org chart. It's 120 folks, and as I look down, just at the facilities in Gainesville, and I highlight those that are glide sloping out of the organization. They're retiring. I highlight those that maybe aren't management type track, and then I highlight those that are management track, and then I look at this. I do this about once every quarter, and I look to see where I need to spend my energy, right? I'm not going to spend my energy. I mean, I'm not going to neglect the glide slope route. I'm not going to neglect, those that aren't your managers, but you can put your energy where you get returns, right? And so I take a look at that and I see where my returns are. And then I start to engage with those people. I say, hey, what do you see yourself doing in a year from now? So I'll start that dialogue. Yeah. And then I get the feedback. So, your point, Jennifer, of early on, right when we started, when you said, hey, do you know what the cost of living is here? Right. And so I'm like, do you know what the cost of living of being management is? You don't get paid for call. You're paid a salary and you work as long as you have to. But if you got to go to the doctor, you don't have to take PTO, right, for that appointment. So, we kind of talk about what that cost of living of being a manager is. And then we talk about what tools they need to add to their bag to get there. And sometimes they don't want it, right? Right. That's not what they want. But I think that transparency builds, number one here, rapport is built because you're spending time with folks that might want to improve their organizational responsibilities. But you connect.
Yes.
And you will see right away if this is a path that you want to continue on or whether you need to choose another path. So I think, we've said it over and over, communication, Terrence, you hit it on the head, Jennifer, you're talking about. I think all those things where you get to that person, you figured out where you need to go, that really pays dividends and you know where to spend your time. I think that all the things that were said were important, but for me, I'm looking for that. The little shortcut. How do I cut some of that lost, wasted time? And it's not a waste of time with your people, but it's just, if there's no desire,
Right.
thank them for what they're doing, help them do better at what they're doing, and get to someone because
Exactly. Engage with them in a different manner.
that's right.
Yeah. It's funny. I was talking to Scanderball. I interviewed him down at Taffin with Mike Hatt, and you talk about like short-circuiting interviews. He was saying he was interviewing a person, and it was very early on in the interview, and the guy's like, am I going to have to work weekends and overtime? And Scanda's like, yeah, occasionally. And I give the person credit. Guy who's interviewing was like, okay, I'm out of here. I don't want the job out. It's good. So another way to short circuit an interview, especially if your roles, if you don't want to work overtime or you don't want to be on call, you can end the interview.
Yeah.
So is it okay for the electrician to work remotely from home?
Yep, that's the next topic. We'll cover electricians remote work. So Jennifer Bello, Terrence Wright, Bobby Beard, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Much appreciate it.
So from FHEA, the Florida Healthcare Engineers Association, Peter Martin for the Healthcare Facilities Network. As always, thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back with another episode. Have a great day. If you want to be a guest on a future episode of the Healthcare Facilities Network, go to healthcarefacilitiesnetwork.com and let us know who you are and what you want to talk about, because together we can solve this critical aging issue.